What is up, everybody? This is Braeden from Flint Mastering, and I am the host and content curator of the Mixing Music Podcast exclusive episodes. And today we have for you an exclusive archive, which means you're going to hear an exclusive episode that Dee Kei and I recorded almost a year ago. You're going to have the chance to hear what our exclusive episodes are all about and how much fun and learning goes on between me and Dee Kei as we discuss technical tips and important techniques in relation to producing, mixing, and mastering. If you enjoy this episode and you'd like to be a part of the exclusive content we provide twice a week, you can do so by heading over to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. Thank you so much for listening. We love you, we appreciate you, and we couldn't do this podcast without you. I hope you enjoy this episode of the exclusive archives. And with that, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy. Hello, my friends, and welcome to this exclusive episode of the Mixing Music Podcast. This episode is for subscribers only, and first and foremost, as always, thank you for subscribing. We love you, we appreciate you, and we appreciate your support. I'm your host for today, Braeden from Flint Mastering, and joining me from his studio in LA, the king of mixing himself, Daddy Dee Kei. What's up, Dee Kei? Welcome.
Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us on this exclusive episode. We appreciate you. You subscribers are the nectar of life.
The nectar of life.
Yes. Let's get into this clip. Can you bring it up?
All right, cool. Yep, let's do it. So in this clip, we're going to listen from legendary vocal producer and songwriter Kuk Harrell, and that is spelled K-U-K. I think it's actually a nickname. But Kuk Harrell, he's won Grammys. He's a legendary vocal producer.
Hold on. That is a terrifying nickname. We will not. That's all I'm going to say. Please keep going.
Yes, so in this clip, he is going to tell us about vocal stacks, what he does for vocal stacks, how he stacks his harmonies and unisons and all that good stuff. So without further ado, Kuk Harrell, roll the tape.
Here's another thing to think about and definitely consider all the time. Sometimes people ask me, how many stacks do I do of a part? If I stack something, you always want to do 4. Don't do 2, because if you do 2, you've just got 3 there, and it really doesn't create anything special. So always just do an even number of 4. Now, I want to start to add another note. Same thing. Left, hard right. And this particular note is blended down just a little bit because harmonies have to be balanced properly. So when you're stacking a unison note, for me, it's if you have the lead and the lead is powerful, most of the time it is.
Finding you were good for me, then why do I put you back right now? Oh.
When you stack that unison, a general rule is, like in something like this, if the texture is, if the lead is powerful, I want it to have some layer and some sweet texture to it. I just simply have them sing that unison part a little bit softer. My term is usually, now give it to me sexy. So with all my stacks, when I laid out how the effects are, there's no magic here. There's nothing different when it comes to the background vocals. Remember, simplicity is key. So once I start singing and once I start getting my EQ and everything set, it's pretty much the same for the entire record. So all my stacks, exact same reverb, delay, little bit of doubler, and then EQ, compressor, and then just the driver.
Okay, cool. So as we have heard from the legendary vocal producer himself, Mr. Harrell, he talks about his stacks, how many stacks you should have, notes, unison notes, settings for stacks, all that good stuff. And so we are going to dive a little deeper into how Dee Kei does his vocal stacks and some of his tips, tricks, and techniques for vocal stacks. So to start, Dee Kei, how many stacks with the lead vocal?
Yeah, so this is totally up to you. Vocals are definitely my specialty. I do a lot of vocal production. With vocals, this guy said 4. He gets 4 vocals. I think that's fine. You can get 16. You can get 2. It doesn't matter. I do think that the big important part that most people don't realize is that Well, I mean, at least in the beginning stages, people don't realize is that you can't just copy and paste. And I would not recommend, if at all possible, I would not recommend using doublers or anything like that to fake a layer. If you're doing the actual recording, make sure to get separate takes. Even if it's the same unison line, make sure you get separate takes. They always work better. There's enough differences between the two vocals that you won't get any phase issues and you won't have to fake it. It actually sounds a lot more natural. So that's the first thing. Whenever I go, I always get at least 3 for stacks. And it totally depends. Like sometimes I'll at least double each harmony part. So for example, if I'm doing a third above, then I'll double it. I'll get 2 so I can go far left, far right. If I'm going a fifth below or a fifth above or whatever, an octave down, octave up, I always get 2 of harmonies. But if it's a lead vocal and I want doubles of the lead, it totally depends if I want like that mono double sound, like that Michael Jackson-esque type sound, then I only record 1 more vocal. If I want like a wider, it's supposed to create space and more width, then I'll get 2 extra unison lines. So it's like the middle and then the 2 unisons. How many ever you get, the more the merrier, because you can always delete takes. That's the thing too. So like the more you have, having 4 is great because then you can always delete them. I probably would only use half or 3 of those. But the more you have, the more that you can take from, which is the best thing, especially if you find out later while mixing that one of them goes out of tune, then you have a backup one. That's always great to have 2. So yeah, getting 4, the number doesn't matter. The point is get a bunch. Get the adequate enough depending on what you want to do.
Okay, so I have a question going off of that. So if you, and this just came to me as I was listening to you speak. If you've got vocal, you've got one in the center, and then you've got, let's say, 3 or 4 harmonies. So let's say you've panned the harmonies left, far right. How do you help those harmonies not clash with other instruments that might be panned far left or far right? Does that make sense?
So good question. This is specific to Dee Kei. So first off, when I'm mixing down harmonies, the tape, they did say balancing harmonies, and now that's super important. I find that very important, and we're going to talk about this for a second. Yes, some notes, and you learn this a little bit in theory class if you ever do like theory core in college, is the importance of some notes in a chord. And it's also just a feel thing. If you perfectly balance every single harmony note, it doesn't sound as good. Especially the most important thing is remember that when you create harmonies, it's a cool effect to make the harmonies really loud, so you kind of don't know which one's the lead part. But most of the time, you want to make sure the lead stands out. Anyway, so when I'm mixing harmonies, the way that I stand out is actually not to cut and carve the harmonies to not clash with the instrumental. But the first thing I do is I make sure that it doesn't clash with the lead vocal. And so oftentimes, a lot of vocals, they want to do their own thing. Let's say in this specific lead vocal, the 1K is where they're the most heavy. They naturally kind of, the most harmonics there. It sounds the cleanest around 1K, so I kind of use 1K for this vocal, right? And where the vocal actually sounds best and where I boost on vocals is totally different from vocal to even microphone to a preamp or whatever. It's not something that you can control. Usually the vocal kind of tells you what they want to do. So that's the first thing is I get the lead vocal sounding as good as I can, and then I create the harmonies and I sculpt the harmonies to be an almost exact contrast. I know that first off, the lead vocal is usually up the middle, it's mono, and then I also like wide pan, hard pan, left and right, the harmonies. So they're spatially separate, but I also like sonically separate. So if I have a 1K that's the most present in the lead vocal, then I cut 1K out of the harmonies and try to find other frequencies that sound good. So let's say in the lead vocal, I boost 1K, but I cut out 500 hertz. I don't like the sound of 500 hertz in this recorded vocal. So then I'll like figure out a way to add around 500 hertz to the harmonies in a way that sounds good, but it's not sounding good by itself. It's sounding good in contrast to the lead vocal because the harmonies they're not meant to sound good by themselves. They're supposed to sound good and support the lead vocal. So I'm really, really good at putting the harmonies and mixing the harmonies sonically to honestly be like a puzzle piece where it like interlocks perfectly and the frequencies kind of interlock with each other. So the lack of 500 hertz and the boosted 500 hertz in the harmonies or the lack of 500 hertz in the lead vocals and the boost of 500 hertz in the harmonies like fits perfectly like a glove. And same thing with the dipped 1K in the harmonies and the boosted 1K in the lead vocal, things like that. So I'm trying to actually harmonically kind of get the most amount of leverage in that section first. And then usually, I mean, with compared to the instrumental, you can always just turn up the vocals. You don't have to carve it out. And oftentimes I am carving out the instrumental with the lead vocals in mind. Because if the harmonies get a little bit lost, then you can always just turn them up again. But the lead vocals is the most important thing. They should not get lost in the instrumental.
Okay, that makes sense. Perfect. Thank you for answering that. So to my next question now then is when you do, so Mr. Harrell, Kuk Harrell was saying that his settings for his harmonies, like his delays, his reverbs, his doubler, his compression, his EQ, basically, well, you just told us the EQ is not the same, but he basically said all of those settings for his harmonies are the same for every single harmony. And it's also similar to the lead vocal. So is that what you do with harmonies and vocal stacks as well?
Yes and no. This is again up to you. What I do with my background vocals, I smash the shit out of them as far as compression goes. So yeah, I do not want those harmonies to be as dynamic as the lead vocal. I mean, sometimes I can, and then it's because sometimes the harmonies, the energy of where the notes come out. For example, if the harmony, they're doing a third above and there's just one note that like takes a lot more breath and a lot more like pressure to bring out, it's going to be louder. And let's say that it doesn't follow, that's like an easy note on the lead vocal, so it's a lot softer on the lead vocal. I don't want that note to come out all of a sudden, so I'd rather just have all the background vocals blanket just super hard compressed so nothing ever comes out past the lead vocal. So that's the first thing too. And with EQ, obviously it's totally opposite of each other. I think that fits a lot better. He did say he likes to use like widener or doubler. I do something similar with my harmonies. I don't use a doubler or anything like that unless I really, really need to. Sometimes I use like the isotope imager, the free one, and don't turn on the doubling effect, but just make sure it's widened, or like an S1 Waves imager, just like make it a little bit wider. Or oftentimes I get the free mid-side matrix from Goodhertz, and it's basically center by Waves as well. You just turn down the mid-channel frequencies or the mid-channel volume just a touch, like a couple dBs, and then I boost the sides like maybe half a dB or something like that. So it accentuates the sides a little bit more rather than cuts down. So that's kind of what I do. It's basically just making it a little bit wider, but in a different way.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I as a mastering engineer, since I don't really deal with individual vocal tracks, I don't have a lot to add to the conversation. But
I also do a lot of de-essing on background vocals because you don't need more than one S. So like I'll hyper de-ess oftentimes because if there's a bunch of S's and they're not timed right either, like if it's like as it was, like you don't want that. So I like hyper de-ess background vocals if I need to, because again, you only need one S.
Actually, that does give me something to say now. I recently had somebody send me an acapella track for mix feedback, and that was one of the points that I gave them, was every single S was like so unbelievably harsh. And I think it's because since it's an acapella group, it's like 20 different voices that all have their own 4 or 5 stacks of themselves, and it just sounded like it hadn't been de-essed that much. So I can totally back up Dee Kei on that. Please de-ess your background vocals a lot. You don't need more than one S.
Because if you don't, stack up quite fast. So
yes, if you don't, it's incredibly uncomfortable to listen to and super, super harsh. So I gave the guy the mix feedback. He changed it, and when he sent it back to me, like I didn't even care about the rest of the mix. Like it solved almost all of the problems. It was so much better.
Yeah, and this is interesting. This comes from my time in choir. Like I spent years and years in choir classes, in choirs, and yeah, the conductor always makes a big deal about everybody timing the end of phrases that end with S, like perfectly timed. Like don't do that thing. It's got to be everybody at the same time. And a lot of the other consonants where they end on other consonants, not as big of a deal, but specifically with S's, everybody needs to start and stop their S's at the same time, or else it gets really, really muddy, even from a live choral experience, not just recording. So I think that's where my attention to that comes from.
Interesting. That makes sense. I never did choir. I was a band kid, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, no comment. Dude, one of the weirdest experiences I've ever done was when I was in college and I did like the men's choir. Yeah, so if y'all didn't know, so I went to college. Well, we went to college at Brigham Young University, which is like the Mormon school in Utah. And then I did like men's choir in Utah for like credits. Holy crap. That shit was wild. That is like virgins everywhere. That's what that was. It was like the most virgin thing I've ever done. And I don't know. It was a very wild, like people would be trading, these 23-year-old kids would be trading Pokemon cards all through. That's fine. Like I know a lot of people that like Pokemon, but it was the most, I don't know how else to describe it, the most virgin thing I've ever done in my life. And I was married with kids when I did that. Like I was, I don't know, it was just funny. Anyway, side tangent. I usually don't bring up my school because of that. I had a weird experience.
And now that we've attacked and alienated those that love Pokemon cards.
No,
like Lou.
I have a few interns that are super. Actually, one of our interns right now at In the Mix Studios, shout out to Marcus. He's like a professional. Used to be a professional Pokemon player. Like
okay, well, we
he
can talk
would do
about
competition. So I have nothing against Pokemon cards. I'm just trying to create a setting of like. I don't know how else to like. I don't know how else to describe that. It was just like the nerdiest thing I've ever done. Like I think I'd find less nerds at like a League of Legends competition. It's like at least they've seen women in their life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this is like the weirdest thing I've ever. Anyway, I'm no longer gonna go on about this.
Yeah, we should probably end it there before it gets bad.
Yeah, just digging my hole deeper.
Cool. Well, actually, I just realized the past few episodes we have not done a challenge for people. I don't know why we forgot to do that, but maybe we won't do it every time. We'll go with the flow. But this time, challenge for you. You could even just record yourself. Like, you don't have to have somebody's recording. Just record yourself a bunch of times, or if you've got vocal recordings, record a bunch of different vocal tracks. Try a couple unisons with the main lead down the center. Try 3, 4, 5 different harmony stacks with 3 or 4 tracks themselves. Pan them hard left, hard right. Figure out what you like. Figure out the balance of notes, whether you like the third more, the fifth more, whatever it is you're going to stack. Just go ahead and try messing with some vocal stacks this week, just in your free time. And I think that will really benefit you, especially when it comes to doing it for clients. And yeah, take Dee Kei's advice. Do what he says. Maybe, try that too. Try crafting the harmonies around the lead. So cut out where the lead sits and boost where the lead doesn't sit in the harmonies.
And sometimes it doesn't work. Like sometimes the same frequencies that work and don't work for a vocal are the same in the background vocals. And so like just be aware that, but at the same time you can like kind of kill the life out of the background vocals. And because the point is it doesn't have to ever sound good by itself. They have to sound good with the harmony. So like whenever I'm EQing the background vocals, I'm EQing them not soloing them. I'm listening to them with the lead vocal. So, and then when I solo the background vocals, often they're like really hollow and dead, but when it's with the lead vocals, they sound great. So just be aware, like don't be afraid, but things to pay attention to.
Exactly. As Shakira said in the movie Zootopia, try everything. Okay, and right there, we'll cut it. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We love you. We appreciate you. As always, Mixing Music Discord. Join if you haven't already. Most of you probably have. And say what's up in the Discord. And also, make sure you go to YouTube now, youtube.com/DK Mixes. Subscribe there. And that really helps the YouTube channel, which then helps the podcast, which then helps everything and helps us help you. It's all one big joined machine of content and support. I don't know.
There's some extra content on YouTube that you won't find on the podcast, so just go ahead and subscribe if you're on there already.
There you go. That would have been an easier way to say that. And as always, good luck with everything. We appreciate you. And Dee Kei, sign us off.
Happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.